Hello, welcome to Lion and Mouse Commentary. I'm Tori, and this is my best friend Holland.
Hello.
If you're new to our show, we rank various forms of media by different categories out of a total score of 10, with only 2 points allowed for our personal taste. We'll break down everything as we go. Feel free to agree, disagree, or just learn about something new. Be sure to tread lightly, because there are hot takes and spoilers ahead. Cut to the intro. Okay, so today I chose...
I need one of those clappers.
Slate?
Yeah. And then I could do...
Yeah.
Sorry.
They don't use this to cut. They use that to sync them.
I know. But that's when you're starting, but you know. The lay people won't know.
So I picked today the classic Disney sitcom Hannah Montana, and we're going to talk about the first 5 episodes of season 1. This is familiar to both me and Holland.
It is.
If this is new to you, I'll be surprised, but here's some background info for you guys. So Hannah Montana.
There is a whole generation of people that didn't watch Hannah Montana when it was on TV.
This is true. In my head, nobody was born after 2009. Those people don't exist.
Wow.
I'm just kidding.
You just probably alienated our entire audience.
So sorry. That was a joke. Haha. Okay, so Hannah Montana, it was released on Disney Channel. The very first air date for the first episode was March 24th, 2006. So as of this recording, next year will be its 20-year anniversary, which is pretty crazy. Episodes were cut to 22 minutes each to fit in the time blocks that Disney Channel had at the time. It ran for 4 seasons with 98 total episodes. The final episode aired on January 16th, 2011, so just shy of 5 years.
That seems like a long time for
a
kids' TV show.
The stars were Miley Cyrus, Emily Osment, Mitchell Musso, Jason Earls, Billy Ray Cyrus, and Moises Arias. They're the top 6 billed cast and the most frequent character appearances throughout the series. Just some information that I gathered. So the Walt Disney Company commissioned this series because of and after the success of Disney Channel's previous music-based franchises such as High School Musical. So if High School Musical had not done as well as it had done, then we most likely would not have gotten Hannah Montana greenlit the way that it was. Hannah Montana is one of Disney Channel's most commercially successful franchises. It received consistently high viewership in the United States on cable television, and it influenced the development of merchandise, soundtrack albums, and concert tours. Legit concert tours. Yeah. The series was nominated for 4 Primetime Emmy Awards for Outstanding Children's Program between 2007 and 2010. Miley Cyrus won a Young Artist Award for Best Performance in a TV Series in 2008. The series premiere, it was aired on March 24th, 2006 as a lead-in to the rerun of High School Musical. So it was curious to me because it said that they commissioned the series after the success of High School Musical, but High School Musical had only been out for 2 months. So it makes me wonder if they had developed the show but waited to air it until it was confirmed that it would do well. That's the only reason that I could explain a 2-month turnaround before the first episode was released.
I feel like they probably filmed the pilot because there's such a big age gap between episode 1 and 2.
Yeah.
That they filmed the pilot and then were waiting to air it.
Yeah,
until
I'm sure.
Maybe it wasn't greenlit until
High School Musical's success was confirmed. Yeah. So it was played as a lead-in to a rerun of High School Musical. And it received 5.4 million viewers on its first episode. This was the highest rated premiere episode in the history of the Disney Channel as of 2006. By April 2006, Hannah Montana had an average of more than 3.5 million viewers for each episode, many of whom were aged between 6 and 14, which I think makes sense with the demographic. The show's most viewed episode was Me and Mr. Jonas and Mr. Jonas and Mr. Jonas, which was an episode that the Jonas Brothers appeared on. That was aired on August 17th, 2007, and it was viewed by 10.7 million people.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's just some basic overview of the general success of the series and the kind of numbers that it was bringing in. Okay, the show Hannah Montana follows Miley Stewart, a teenage girl who lives a double life as the famous pop star Hannah Montana. By day, she's a regular high school student, but by night, she transforms into Hannah with the help of a blonde wig and makeup. The show explores the challenges and comedic situations that arise from keeping her identity hidden from friends, family, and the public. That's the synopsis.
So, okay.
So, first category, go ahead.
Okay. So, our first category for TV shows is plot, story, and cohesion. If we do multiple seasons, it includes resolution throughout a season. So, total possible score of 2. I give this 1 out of 2 points. I have to say, for the majority of this topic, I tried very hard to look at this through the lens of the intended audience of this show. So I know our purpose is to try and compare apples to apples, but I tried to be a little bit more forgiving in some areas of critique because this is a children's media.
Sitcom, yeah.
So for the plot, half credit, 1 out of 2. I think overall, this concept of this show is that there's a regular girl who has the talent to be a pop star, but she keeps it a secret because she wants a normal life, is a great plot. That's a pretty good plot. It gives you opportunity for a lot of themes and conflicts that are true to where the target audience is coming from. So you have discussions about, concepts like teenage identity, family dynamics, peer pressure at school, having, success, but then, it's like Hannah Montana has all this success and is selling out arenas, and then the bullies are mean to her at school. So I like the fact that Miley Stewart, the character, is very successful and desired as Hannah Montana. She's a successful pop star. People want to be her and meet her and watch her perform. But then she's not the popular girl at school. And so it's a very interesting dynamic. A lot of room for various sitcom antics. And just from the jump, you realize this has a lot of potential. I think it has a great potential for a kid's TV show. And it's also it was released right on the pop star phase of kids entertainment. I think that I've heard a statistic somewhere that kids, when you ask kids today what they want to be when they grow up, they say a YouTuber. I think the generation prior in the 2000s wanted to be a pop star. And so it's perfect timing of when this was released as well. Also, I think that the dialogue and physicality of this show, it's clearly written as a comedy. So it's not this drama of this girl that's, I just want to be a normal girl. It's oh my gosh, I have to be in 2 places at once. And how am I going to get the boy to like me at school? And, so it's very clearly a comedy, which is nice. And then there is with each episode, there's generally kind of a moral or a message where at the end of each episode, there's at least a clear point of what this plot was. There might be a bunch of silliness that ensues, hilarity ensues, but then at the end of it, kind of the adult in the room, which is usually Miley's dad, sits down and kind of summarizes okay, what's the real lesson we can learn from all of this? So I think overall it's structured very well as a TV show for a younger audience. There are a few plot holes kind of as they go. You really have to take it all in stride because there is a lot of unrealistic things that happen, but the show isn't trying to be realistic. So I have a couple specifics about just kind of general plot notes. So the first 5 episodes, I like that they're all titled tongue-in-cheek towards different song titles. So the first one, episodes 1 through 5 are, number 1 is Lily, Do You Want to Know a Secret? Episode 2 is Miley, Get Your Gum. Episode 3 is She's a Super Sneak. Episode 4 is I Can't Make You Love Hannah If You Don't. And episode 5 is It's My Party and I'll Lie If I Want to. And Tori and I mostly when we do TV shows, a little side note, we pick it based on length. So we don't pick the first 5 episodes because they hold any type of overarching plot or overarching storyline. We picked the first 5 episodes because time-wise, it gives us more manageable podcast episode length.
The goal is that we are going to, anytime we're doing like a show, we want to spend the same amount of time analyzing that we would for like a typical feature-length film. So whatever number of episodes of whatever we're watching that's a series, whatever kind of equates to like one movie is kind of what we're going to go with as far as length.
Exactly. There is a clear time jump between the pilot, which is episode 1, and episode 2. The kids clearly have aged a little bit. That's why kind of like in our introduction, we were talking maybe that was filmed that early, way earlier in front of High School Musical. So I have a couple general notes about the plots. I also think, I just want to say generally, I do think this plot is way more believable because this took place before social media existed.
Yeah, good point.
Smartphones did not exist. Camera phones were very primitive. So this plot is way more believable prior to the era of social media and influencer culture. So I think it works very well because obviously your big question mark is there's no way that a teenager could keep that a secret, and the paparazzi, the kids at school, her friends' parents, that secret would never get out. So the secret is kept in these first 5 episodes very well. And of course, that is the least believable thing in the plot. But I think this show does a pretty good job of trying to keep it believability in this fictional realm of, you know, Miley's world is fictional because the kind of hilarity that ensues is bending reality a bit. But then also in the time period this took place, it's very much a picture of the 2000s. So I have a couple specific things with the plot. I didn't give it full points. I'll kind of break it down as I go, try and kind of go in order. So episodes 1 and 2 is like Miley telling her friends, or 2 best friends, Oliver and Lily. She tells them her secret in the first 2 episodes, which I think is nice overall because now she has like friends that she can talk to about being a pop star, and then they're established as existing friends. So you get to kind of explore conflict of what would it be like if you found out your best friend was a pop star and then now you have to keep the secret as well, and how does that feed into your social life. So the first 2 episodes of her getting this little inside circle, I think overall is a pretty good plot. It's kind of like a lot of the plots in these first 5 episodes, there's a very shallow plot, and then there's a little bit of like surprising depth that you find along the way. Like, for example, when Miley tells her 2 friends, they both react in ways that are pretty believable for a middle schooler to react. So you initially are like, oh, it's silly because she's telling her friends that she's really a pop star. But then as you go, you're like, oh, there is actually some of those nuggets that we're going to kind of pull out at the end of the episode as some kind of message for kids to kind of understand. In episode 2, the whole plot with Oliver being like paranoid of gum, I think is really stupid. It's really corny. I understand it's like the avenue that they use, but it's really like off the charts ridiculous. Like, nobody would really react that way. And that's what I mean. They're kind of bending reality. But as an adult, I am an adult watching this show. I'm not a 12-year-old watching this show. So I can't critique it like a 12-year-old. I think a 12-year-old would probably think it's funny. But an adult, it's kind of like, okay, this is just it's a little too heavy-handed. And so some of the comedy, I think, is just a little too much that it like, we didn't have to go quite that far. The needle on the meter is just a little too far off the scale there. I do like how her dad is integrated into like the Hannah Montana world, so that from an audience standpoint, like if my kids were watching it, it's not this, 13-year-old girl just like off in the world being trusted in the hands of some stranger manager, some seedy like producer or things like that. Her dad is with her the whole step of the way. I think it's a great message for kids to like see this kind of family dynamic together. And then I think it's well integrated into a believable part of the show as well. The first 2 episodes as well give a lot of background and backstory to the development of Miley and her friend group, which I'll talk about a little bit in characters as well. I think it's done really well. A lot of the B plots though. Like, there's a B plot with Jackson buying a car and then he finds out it's a girl's car. A lot of the B plots just kind of fall flat. They're not the most interesting part. It does kind of flesh out a little bit of your minor characters. It gives you something kind of entertaining to like watch, but it doesn't really, they don't always hit the mark. And so that was one reason I couldn't really give it full points, because some of the B plots are just not, they're just not as good as others. The episode 3, with her and her Miley and her brother Jackson are like sneaking out of the house when they're supposed to be studying. Their dad's left them home alone to study. They sneak out of the house. That's a very stereotypical like teenage, like preteen teen plot line. And then they find out that her dad is dating again because Miley's mom has died, and so her dad has started dating again. Again, it's like a very shallow plot of these kids sneaking out to go to the movies, and then this strangely surprising depth of like these two young like teen kids are now having to come to terms with the fact that their dad is lonely and might want to start dating another person, and they might have to accept a new member of their family, and their reactions to that all seem pretty believable. And so that's what I mean when I say like a lot of these plots, they start out really shallow, and then you're like, oh, actually there's a lot going on in this plot that you could pull out of. And for a kid that's 8, you know, they're like, aha, it's funny, they snuck out of the movie theater, snuck out of the house and went to the movies. But then for a 12-year-old, it's like, oh, like that may be able to relate to some aspect of that scenario. I think it's done pretty well. Them hiding in the movie theater though, there's a whole long sequence where they're like hiding in the movie theater. It takes so long.
The cardboard cutout.
Yeah,
and stuff.
Behind the cardboard cutouts, and they move them, and like then they stick their heads up over them. And it's one of those things we've bent reality. Like no one would fall for that. It's so unbelievable, and it just takes really long. It's just a really long sequence. It's funny, but it could have probably been half the time. We still would have gotten the point. I think in that same plot, it's not really a Hannah Montana plot. It's a Miley Stewart plot, which I think is really interesting, an interesting choice in the 3rd episode. And then Miley's upset, at her dad, which is understandable, but then she has this blowout with him in the realtor's office, which seems like you would definitely expose your secret then. It's also a little bit unrealistic that Hannah has this blow up at her dad in the realtor's office, and how that wouldn't blow her secret. And then the fact that the realtor is just like not onto them at all. So that whole part, it's like this would be in your 3rd episode. You just have a really big way that obviously Hannah Montana would get exposed for this. Episode 4, I Can't Make You Love Hannah If You Don't. I think this probably is the weakest plot of the 5 episodes we watched. It's Miley's trying to get a guy that she likes to like Hannah Montana because she feels some like identity. If he doesn't like Hannah, then how can he really like me? Which I think is a decent nugget, but then the whole rest of the plot is just very like antics ensue. Again, I think it's great for an 8-year-old, but not.
It's very like Scooby-Doo slapstick.
Yes. Yes. That. Yeah. She's trying to be in 2 places at once. And then Jackson's like B plot in that one, I think is also, I feel like if Jackson's B plot was then the A plot and Hannah Montana's or Miley Cyrus's plot was the B plot, maybe it could have been a little bit more interesting of an episode, because he's dating this girl who's his best friend's sister and there's like conflict there. So it's not super interesting as a B plot because I feel like we don't have enough tension or conflict to really care that much. So I almost wonder if that whole episode could have flipped, because then I feel like we spend too much time on the Miley's plot line, and it just, the back and forth with that also feels just a little long. And then episode 5, It's My Party and a Lie If I Want To. It is our first episode where Rico as a character is introduced, and he's really the first antagonist we have. You could say that in the very first episode we meet Amber and Ashley, who are kind of the bullies, the mean girls at school, but they're in that one episode and then they don't really appear again. So they're not really they don't seem to be antagonists. I believe later on in the show they'll come back.
Yeah, they come back a few times, but it's really sporadic.
Yeah, but Rico is really like the first real antagonist of the show.
And Moises Arias is considered one of the top 6 build cast of the show. So.
Right. And then also introduced is Tracy, who is this sort of mean girl character for Hannah Montana. And so kind of pressuring Miley's alter ego, Hannah Montana, to not have her best friend along because she's embarrassing and things like that. Again, I think it's a good plot to really kind of explore like conflicts between friends and like things that you experience as you age and realize like you care what other people think and you care about your reputation and you don't want to hurt people's feelings. So all very realistic kind of dynamics. And then I like in episode 5 specifically that Miley actually telling Lily the truth at the end is the solution to the problem, and then being willing to give her friend constructive feedback instead of going towards what I think would be a very easy way out and a very common move was to just lie to her friend and hide everything. And then she gets found out and is like, my bad. And, you know, but for her to really tell Lily the truth at the end is like, all right, here's all these things. This is what you do, you know, and Lily doesn't even realize she was doing half of that stuff. And to be like, you know, yeah, this is really embarrassing, but you know, you're still my best friend. And like, we're still friends. And, you know, so there is a little bit of the deception when like the paparazzi takes a picture of her or something and like she's trying to keep that picture from Lily from seeing that photo. But then for her to actually make the decision to like, I'm going to be honest and tell the truth. And I would say in general, aside from the fact that she's keeping Hannah Montana a secret for valid reasons, in general, a lot of these episodes, like the answer is to just be honest about, you know, just tell the truth. And so overall, I think the plots are really good for a kid's TV show. It's very surprising. It's not just straight like slapstick funny. There's in general a pretty decent message for all of it. But I don't think they're all perfect. I think there's definitely episodes with weaker plots and that have, you know, the gags just go on a little too long. The plots are a little just unbelievably silly and there's not enough of that nugget in it to kind of give you this moral at the end. It's kind of like we had, you know, it's a 22-minute episode. We have 15 minutes of silliness and now we've got like 5 minutes to kind of sum it up and make it mean something. Whereas some of the episodes, they feel like they were constructed with this end goal in mind. So that's kind of the generalization I have of the plots, and a couple notes I have with different episodes. But overall, I think that it does really good of keeping our main characters the main characters, exploring their dynamics together, and it's not this sensationalized story about a pop star, which I think could have been the really easy route to take. It's really more about this girl and her dad and brother and their friends and how they're navigating life, and she just happens to be a pop star. She's not a pop star and we're ignoring her personal life except for conflict. So overall, I think it's pretty good, but it's not perfect. So that's why I gave it kind of half credit. So 1 out of 2.
Okay. So for plot, story, and cohesion for me, I also gave this 1 out of 2 points. I agree with a lot of what you say. So when you are looking at a sitcom, I feel like a sitcom kind of has to be looked at a little differently than perhaps like a drama series would, or you're not gonna, you can't look at Hannah Montana and a show like Downton Abbey the same way. They're completely, they may be similar mediums in that they are a TV series, but other than that, they share no similarities. So I would put Hannah Montana definitely more into a sitcom genre than anything else. And I like that it follows the sitcom style where everything, the conflict of the week or the conflict of the episode is resolved by the end of the episode. But then when you watch the next episode, there's also the existing character growth still exists. So it's not like everybody resets back to their characters step 1. just because the resolution from the previous episode is done and has nothing to do with what we're watching now. I think that's generally a good sitcom. That's your idea, is that you want your characters to grow, but you don't need your story to.
Right.
Because your story, it's very slice of life. And that's kind of what sitcoms are in general. It's very slice of life. Like, what's the conflict of the week? What, and it's really true to life, because in our own lives, we have things that arise that we didn't expect, and now we have to navigate that. And sometimes we choose to navigate it on our own, and it affects people poorly. Sometimes we include people and shouldn't have, and whatever it is. And we see examples of that throughout these first 5 episodes. And I think that those conflicts do feel really normal for the context and the age group. For us, I think as adults, we look at it and we go, well, this is kind of a shallow plot. And yes, I agree that the plots that are perceived as shallow in the beginning usually do have a deeper nugget that we find during the course of that episode. But I think that, just looking back in my own life, things that were huge to me when I was 13 or 14, if they come up now in life, it's not a big deal. Mm-hmm. It's just another day. It's just another, oh, okay, well, that's 10 minutes of my life that was annoying or whatever. So I think, again, trying to look at it through the perspective and lens of the designated age group, I think that the conflicts that come up feel very appropriate. They're very age appropriate, yeah. I think, for the demographic and for the age of the characters involved. They're older middle school, maybe early high school. It's kind of vague. I don't know if they give exact ages, but in my head, they're between 13 and 14, kind of in the beginning there. With Jackson maybe being 16, he can drive. So he's obviously a little bit older. But I think that, the conflict of, I have 2 separate friend groups and I'd like to merge them, but there's conflict here. Like we see in, what is it? It's my party and I'll lie if I want to.
Yeah.
That, for us, we're just tell your friend the truth or move on. And if this friend doesn't fit into this friend group, then it's fine. They don't have, it's as an adult, it feels like an easy thing to navigate. But when you're 13, and I don't know many 13-year-olds that actively walk into conflict, that is a difficult thing, mm-hmm. a very stressful thing to navigate, or even just telling a friend a big secret that you have and trying to figure out how do I do this without making it seem like I didn't tell them because of their fault or whatever. Again, it feels like small potatoes to an adult, but to a teenager, that's a really valid and big thing. And so I found most of each plot's conflicts to be age appropriate. Now, that being said, so the episodes are only 22 minutes, and if you're spending 6 or 8 minutes on one bit or joke, for example, I can't make you love Hannah if you don't. Half the episode, so 10 or 11 minutes of the 22 is Hannah literally running around, Miley, running around Scooby-Doo style to be Hannah Montana for 5 minutes and then can be Miley for 5 minutes and then be Hannah Montana. And so it's the first 3 minutes of that is really funny and amusing. But they do have a tendency in almost every episode to take a bit and then beat it until it's not funny anymore. So I do think that is kind of a problem. And what it feels like is they're trying to fill their 22 minutes. Their plot is really only 16 minutes. And now we got all this extra space. So now we have to fill it in with slapstick humor and comedy and B plots that don't necessarily have anything to do with anything or really make us care any more or less about anybody. I don't think it's a huge negative, but I think it's a big enough negative that is one of the biggest reasons that I gave it half credit. I do like that each episode in these first 5 is very focused on a character. So it's you have your Lily episode. You get to know a lot about Lily and Miley and their relationship and how that works and how that navigates. Second episode is Oliver-centric. And now we get to see how Miley and Oliver's friendship is different than the dynamic she has with Lily, and how the dynamic of the three of them works. And so you're learning all of that about that. It seems very foundational, these first 5 episodes. And then you have a Robbie Ray, episode. So you get these nice character-centric episodes, but they all still feel like it doesn't feel unnecessary for Miley and Jackson to be present through a majority of Robbie Ray's episode. Like, obviously, they all live together. It makes sense. So they incorporate those things really naturally, I think. I don't have a ton to say, but the last thing I want to talk about is, while I do think some of the humor is goes on too long, so much of the dialogue I still find really funny and witty. And it's like, there's the whole bit about like Lily's like turning around to leave, and she's like, I guess I'll just be on my way. And she's like waiting for Miley to like stop her, and she just like really slowly, and I just still think that's funny. Yeah. And like in the episode where she's telling Oliver or whatever, and she's really trying to convince him to like move on from his crush from Hannah Montana, and she's like, you should go follow Mandy Moore, she's blonde again. And like all these years have gone by, and like lines like that I still remember. And that's true of a lot of the show, not just these first 5 episodes. So I do think that the dialogue and the writing is really nice. Again, it's age appropriate and still really clever. I just think that they maybe leaned too hard into dragging out the physical humor to the point where it was no longer funny. And it started to feel very Three Stoogey instead of like a funny moment. So all of that to say 1 point out of 2 for plot and story. Yeah,
I definitely agree like with your statement on the dialogue. There are some lines that we still quote at my house too.
Do you hear yourself when you're talking, or is there just a roaring in your ears?
Yeah, later on in the show, there's one where I think Miley says, boy brains, you might as well scoop them out and store nuts up there. Like we still say that one.
There's a whole later, it's like season 3 maybe, there's a whole like sequence where Jackson and Oliver decide they're gonna sell cheese jerky, and they make up a song, and I still have that song memorized.
Yep. So and one thing I was gonna say, a lot of the plots, I forgot to mention this, like they're, like you said, they're very, very age appropriate, but they're also appropriate for a family to watch together. Like there's some jokes in there about like musicians, that like there's some jokes in there that like kids are not of the generation to get that joke, but the parents watching would get that joke. So not that they're inappropriate or, lewd, but that it's like,
that's a joke for your dad, not for you.
Right. So I think it's a very family oriented show, which I think is very lacking in this day and age for sure. So our next category is characters. So out of a total possible score of 3, I gave this 1.5 points out of 3. I think overall the acting and the casting is really done well in this show. The acting is, honestly, I feel like Disney has become so stereotyped with their acting. They're over-exaggerated, like campy acting style on their TV shows. But maybe it's just, I could be looking at this through rose-colored glasses, but I feel like the acting in this show, it's a little corny, it's a little overplayed for humor, but it's not all the way to the over-exaggerated campy style that, people associate with Disney, at least in my view. I think it was the Disney formula that before it just pushed that into a brand, and the kids feel like kids, not child actors.
Ooh.
And everything that these young actors do, you believe that is something that individual as a kid would do. The way that they, and in their acting ability, the way that they talk to each other, even when they are like over exaggerating or being dramatic for effect, like you said, when Lily's like, here I go, like you could still see a girl her age doing that.
Yeah.
Even though clearly somebody wrote it in the script for her to do that. There aren't a lot of moments that with the caveat, unless they're played for comedy, there aren't a lot of moments where you're like, a kid would never say that. A kid would never do that. Unless it's bending reality for the comedic effect. And so I think that's really admirable for these kids. The cast, the three main kids in this cast, and then even Jackson and Robbie Ray, so our 5 kind of main cast, they have excellent chemistry together. The casting is really, really good. These kids feel like they've been going to the same middle school together since, elementary school. They've been going to the same school for the past, 12 years of their life or however old they are. You really believe that they know each other, they like each other, they get along. Nobody seems to be like competing for the camera time. It's really, really refreshing. Some things with the acting specifically, like my one more note is, I feel like it's over exaggerated for effect, like Drake and Josh, rather than as a consistent character beat. So like how Drake and Josh, another show from the 2000s?
Yeah, similar time frame, yeah.
Similar time frame.
I think Drake and Josh started in 2004, so it was a couple years.
Yeah, on
older.
Nickelodeon,
yeah.
So different network. But there were moments where Drake and Josh, the main characters, will talk to each other, and one of them will just like go zany, like say something really loud or really big, and it's like, it's done that way for comedy.
Yeah.
And the truth is, like, we know people that do that in real life. They'll do something really big and loud because they're trying to get you to laugh in the room.
I do that.
Yeah. So it's still believable. I think you can argue that it's still believable for these kids. And I think it's in that just sweet spot of Disney where they were kind of finding their formula for sitcoms. And it was before they were like, this is it. This is how every kid's going to be every time, but we're going to dial it up to 11. So I just have to kind of commend the acting on these young kids. With the character specifically, I would say Miley is very believable as both a regular kid and a pop star. I mean, Miley Cyrus is extremely successful. This is really where she got her start. She's done a number of things with acting and music, but she's an 8th grader. So they say in the show I wrote down.
Oh, okay.
As an 8th grader, she's very believable as a normal 8th grader.
Yeah.
And then she steps on stage as Hannah Montana, or she's singing, like she actually sings musical numbers in the show that kind of helps kind of capture what her Hannah Montana stage work is like. And she's very believable as, she has great stage presence. She has, she kind of works the crowd. So she's very believable in both of those things. I feel like that could be really hard to find. But she also is very clearly the main character. The whole focus kind of revolves around her. And I think it's okay. Like, the name of the show is Hannah Montana. I think that's okay to have your main character. This isn't it's not like Parks and Rec where each character takes center stage for that episode. That episode's only about them. Miley Cyrus is very clearly the main character, and the stories reflect that. I like that. I think she's a very believable character, and she's very consistent, except for episode 4. I think because of that kind of exaggerated physicality, it's just not a very believable. It's not very believable. It seems the most out of character for her compared to the other episodes, because the first 2 episodes, the first 3 episodes, we've established that Miley as a character is very willing to just be herself and to be honest about who she is, and to, treat her friends with respect and integrity and own up to who she is and talk to her dad about how she's feeling about things. And then all of a sudden in episode 4, she's like, I've got to pretend to be somebody. I've got to try and make this boy like Hannah. Whereas I feel like that seems a little inconsistent with who we've set up in the first 3 episodes. Maybe if that episode came out, episode 6, where we had a little bit more time to explore Miley making some mistakes, then maybe it would have felt a little bit more believable. But it seems a little bit out of place for her to suddenly make that character decision. Lily, I think she's a great best friend, and I like that as a character she fits the role of a best friend, not a sidekick. And I think that that's not done very often in this show. The conversation she has with Miley and the way that she, before Oliver knows, the way she lets she and Miley confide in each other. She really feels like these are two girl best friends. It's a really good, I think a good example for young girls of like, hey, this is kind of how friendship is supposed to be. You're honest with each other, you respect each other, you're kind to each other. It's very, very believable. You can tell she actually has a relationship with Miley. And I think that they do a great job of setting Miley and Lily up together as two characters, as two friends who genuinely care about each other. They don't just have the same interests that brings them together. They genuinely have a friendship. So I think that's done very well, and it's not very common in kids' media. Most of the time, they just have a common interest. They show up to, cheerleading practice together, and that's how they know each other and get along.
When in reality, it's established pretty early that Miley and Lily are very different.
Right.
In interests and personality.
Yeah, exactly. And then Oliver, I think he starts as this really weird character that has these traits that then go nowhere. And I believe, if I'm remembering correctly in the series, he develops more later on, but I think he is the absolute weakest in these first few episodes. He has this whole locker man bit about how he's the guy that opens the locker. He's this obsessed fan. His only character note is he's obsessed with Hannah Montana. And then that gets upended because he finds out that she's Miley. And then it's like he has no real character development after that. It was like, well, we know who this guy is. He's obsessed with Hannah Montana. And once we fixed that problem and made him now know that it's Miley, what do we do with this guy? And so in these episodes specifically, I think he's the weakest character, although he's kind of plays into that like he's a dumb boy trope, and he seems to be a little bit more for comedic relief. But he, in these 5 episodes, he really hasn't hit his stride yet. Like in episode 4, when he's trying to tell, like he's sitting there with Lily trying to get the boy Josh to like Hannah Montana. He's like almost blows the whole plan.
Yeah.
And, so he's kind of this dumb, he's not a jock, or he'd be like the dumb jock. So I think he's probably one of the weakest characters. And then Robbie Ray and Jackson, I think they have a great dynamic together. They're kind of the not really like lunkhead boys, but they kind of they can do dumb things together. But Robbie Ray, I really like that he is still the dad and he has a good head on his shoulders. He doesn't play into that. I feel like a lot of sitcoms in children's media, the adults are the dumbest people in the room and they're oblivious to everything, except when we need somebody to have a wise word here or there. I like that Robbie Ray, they established that he has a good relationship with his kids. He actually knows where they're at in life and is intentionally investing in his kids' lives. And then he still has room to grow, if you will. But with the exception, again, with episode 4, I feel like they completely ruin that when he doesn't know that Miley's switching back and forth and she's hiding behind him. Again, I think that's just a weak episode in general, but it's all of a sudden he's not onto her at all. He seems to be a pretty smart dude, except when we need the plot convenience of him not to be. And then Jackson, I think in these episodes especially, he is just straight comedic relief. He's kind of a stereotypical guy with wanting a car and girls and eating weird foods and stuff like that, but talking about working out and
he's
things.
a very stereotypical older brother character.
Yeah So he doesn't have a lot of depth, but he doesn't seem to need a lot of depth for the purpose of the show in these episodes. I do think the actor especially, I think he's pretty underrated in this show because he's pretty entertaining.
Jason Earls.
Yeah, honestly. I do like that overall there's a lot of tropes and stereotypes and kind of tropey cliche things done, but nobody is expecting you to take them really seriously. So you kind of have to weigh, this isn't, don't take this too seriously, just kind of take it at face value. But also because of that, I do agree that episode to episode, the characters do kind of grow. They don't reset every episode, but there isn't a lot of character growth in these first 5 episodes. We're really still just establishing them as characters. We're just trying to introduce them who they are, and we only have 22 minutes in each episode to do that. So there really isn't a lot of growth. There seems to be potential for depth, but there's not really a lot of depth. Their relationships with each other seem to have really good roots that are starting, but we don't get to see a whole lot of fruit from that just yet. And I think that's fair in your first early episodes of a lengthy TV show. But for that reason, I really couldn't give it full credit. It's kind of, we're halfway there, if you will. There are some minor characters that all feel really tropey too. So you have Amber and Ashley, they're like the mean popular girls trope. You have the weird annoying neighbor trope. You have Tracy, who's kind of like the Hannah Montana mean girl. Cooper and Olivia, I feel like they're just, Cooper's like the best friend trope, the dude friend trope. His little sister's like devious but seems really sweet. It's a very stereotypical role. And then even Rico at this stage of the game is just a trope. He's like the what's the word I'm looking for? He's just constantly trying to like foil Jackson's chance at happiness. And like that's his whole thing. He's like the maniacal, laughing, evil genius. So all of our minor characters are very, very stereotypical and very flat and kind of boring. But I think we have a lot of good nuggets for our main cast. So that's why I gave it half credit. So 1.5 out of 3.
Okay. For me, for characters, I gave this 2 out of 3 points. You hit a lot of the points that I was going to say, but I'll just kind of summarize. I think across the board, the characters are really fun and memorable. I think that the first 5 episodes do give, while the time is short, I like that there seems to be adequate time given to each of our 5 main casts. So, I mean, obviously, particularly Miley, but Jackson, Robbie Ray, Oliver, and Lily, we get to see the establishment of their relationship, and I think that these relationships feel so natural and organic on the screen. Like you said, I believe that they've known each other for their whole lives. Kudos to the actors, kudos to the casting director for finding 5 people that feel and look so comfortable on stage that they look like any other, a friend group I'd stumble upon in real life.
Yeah.
So I really, really, really want to commend them for that. I wrote, I said this, but like I wrote the word organic because I feel like it's really easy to watch, especially a comedic type show, and be like, haha, this is a comedy, and always be thinking about that. But what this feels like is like people that really know each other doing funny things, which is a little different than just watching a comedy show. And that's more of the vibe that I get, is they do silly things, and they do things that are maybe too silly sometimes, but they still feel like real enough people that I'm fine with it. Even if we haven't dived into the depth. I don't know somebody for 22 minutes and then feel like I know them really well. So in a situation like a series where I know there's going to be episodes to come, I'm really okay with like the slow learning process as long as there's continuous progress of learning these characters. As long as it's not stagnating, I'm okay learning one nugget about you this week, one nugget about this person this week. Like I'm okay with that. I accept that pacing. I think that the characters of the week, if you will, so characters like Amber and Ashley, characters like the weird neighbor who makes fun of Jackson's car, Cooper,
Olivia, Josh,
them too, but Tracy,
yeah,
like characters like that, sure, they're not deep, but they're on screen for 5 or 6 total minutes of the 22-minute episode, sometimes even less than that. And I don't really need to know their whole backstory. I don't need to know how they operate or what they're thinking or what their goal and motivation in life is. This is a kid's sitcom. I'm okay with it. They're memorable enough that I'm fine. And they all seem to fit the world, even if it isn't a humorous way. They at least feel like they belong there. That goofy neighbor does feel like he lives next to them.
That's very true.
It's like he's goofy and he's over the top and annoying and plays it up. But like he does feel like you could have a neighbor that's annoying. Like that could be a legit thing. Amber and Ashley, they're stereotypes, sure, but they also feel like real girls you'd come across in 8th grade. And so, you know, in the scope of all of this, I don't think they're perfect. I do think that they are kind of flat and stereotypical, which is a big reason why I'm not giving them full credit. But I also don't think that it's detrimental enough for me to give any less than 2 points. So while also echoing on a lot of what you said about each of the main characters, I pretty much agree with everything you said about them. So 2 out of 3 points.
All right. So our next category is aesthetics. So a total possible score of 2 for this category. I give it half a point out of 2. So I do think this is where the show is the weakest. It feels the most dated in this category. I also factored into this category kind of what we talked about already about some of the physicality of the show being done for too long. A lot of the gags and physical gags are they just miss the mark. And so in this category, we can talk about, it's all about kind of the visuals of what we're looking at. So even though I do think it factors into the plot, I also kind of factored it into this category as well. The, like them hiding in the movie theater specifically, the concert in episode 4, they'll show shots of Miley on a stage with like a big audience, like it's a concert arena, and then they'll cut back to where Oliver, Lily, and Josh are sitting, and they're sitting in like an auditorium with risers and like theater style seats. And I'm like, this is not the same. It's clearly not the same location.
Venue, yeah.
But it doesn't even look like a concert. They're sitting in seats like they're going to watch a stage play instead of sitting in like stadium or auditorium seats. It just looks very odd. And again, an 8-year-old would not care, but I'm not 8. So this is where we're supposed to talk about this. I think it's very jarring cutting from that auditorium scene to the concert footage that clearly doesn't match. In episode 3, when Miley is singing on the porch that song,
I miss you.
Yeah.
I miss you, smile.
She's very clearly lip syncing, and it's bad. I think it's just very bad. She's clearly good at lip syncing for all those concert songs, which maybe she was singing live and then they dubbed her audio over it, probably is what happened. But she's very good at lip syncing that. Why couldn't she lip sync to an acoustic guitar? I just felt like that was pretty jarring as well. In episode 5, It's My Party on a Life, I Want To, Jackson has this he's trying to date this girl who says she's a hairstylist, and so she keeps messing up his hair. Mm-hmm. The bald cap looks surprisingly good.
Yeah.
All of the wigs look atrocious.
Yeah.
They don't look like real hair. They definitely don't look like Jackson's hair. It's I get it, it's comedy and it's a bit, but it looks so bad. Like, again, I probably wouldn't care if I was 8, but I'm not 8. The special effects are also pretty dated. It's fine for the time, but hindsight's 2020. The special effects of Oliver riding his bike next to the limo, it's very clearly like green screened, or it's very obvious that it's not real. But again, we're kind of bending reality a little bit with this. And then in episode 2 as well, when Miley blows a bubble of bubble gum and it explodes on Oliver's face, the shot of her in profile with her blowing like the bubble gum into a giant bubble, come on, like no, like it looks so bad. It's for a bit and it's for comedy, so I don't even really mind the fact that she could blow a bubble the size of a truck tire, but it looks terrible. And she definitely did not have that much gum in her mouth, but the aesthetics of the visual of that special effect just doesn't look good. I can't really fault it for the appliance, like what looks like a latex appliance that then Oliver has on his face when it like pops on his face. It looks like a latex special effects. It's practical, it's in camera, but like, could we not have like blown a balloon up or something instead of trying that pretty horrible CG? Mm-hmm. So overall, the aesthetics are not great. I also don't particularly like shows that have like a laugh track or a live audience. I think at the time I could be wrong, but I know that The Sweet Life of Zach and Cody was filmed in front of a live audience. I am pretty sure Hannah Montana was as well. So I can't really fault it for them having a live audience, but again, it really makes it feel dated. I mean, at least they don't have a laugh track. You can tell differences in people's laughter that it is like a live audience. But I think that really makes it feel really dated. It's kind of telling people when they should think something's funny. And I think that the humor in this show, like we talked about, the humor's really good. Like the dialogue's really good. We don't need a live audience laughter to like tell your audience at home when they should think something's funny. The costumes are also very dated, but I think it's a nice little time capsule of the 2000s. So I don't think that's really a negative, but it does age the show quite a bit. The songs are surprisingly really good. The songs that Hannah Montana sings live, it's believably a like tween teen pop star. And I think that the concerts and the use of the music in like different montages and stuff is just done pretty well. It makes you believe that like not only is this a pop star who's performing, here's some performances, helps you buy into the character from a story aspect, but I think it also helps kind of move the plot forward. It's good transitional moments and things like that as well. And then the sets and the set dressing, it feels pretty dated. The sets don't always really feel like they're lived in. It feels definitely like a, camera structured like sitcom. Yeah. So, but they're good. It's eclectic. It's believable that, Miley's house is a house on a beach, but, it still very much feels like a sitcom, like you're watching it in front of a live audience. And I don't think that's a bad thing necessarily, but I think overall the biggest negative I have with the aesthetics of the show is it just feels very dated. Everything you're seeing in the camera that's not a person just feels out of date. The acting's good. The plots are, not terrible. But it just overall feels like it doesn't feel cheap by any means, but it feels like this is a kid's TV show. It doesn't have that quality or caliber that you would expect from, an adult primetime sitcom. And again, I get it. That's for the intended audience, but I think objectively it's not the strongest part of the show. So I couldn't really give it full points. There were enough moments, the way I kind of encapsulated it, there were enough moments while I was watching these episodes where I was like, oh, like visually it just kind of caught me off guard, or it was really jarring, or it kind of pulled me out of the story. The visuals just kind of were distracting enough to pull me out of the story. So that's kind of the biggest reason of why I gave it 0.5 point out of 2.
Okay. So for me, for aesthetics, we have some very differing opinions. I give this 1.5 points out of 2. Let me talk about why. I completely agree with your CGI and green screen. Those are the reasons that it is not full points for me. Those are like the two biggest things for me. However, I love a live studio audience. It is now a dead art. I don't know of any show that still does it. And I think this was one of the last shows that Disney did it for. It was also dying at Nickelodeon at around this time. I think the last Nickelodeon show, I think Nickelodeon went a little bit longer. I think the last show that Nickelodeon did with a live studio audience may have been iCarly or Victorious. But I think this was one of the last shows that Disney did a live studio audience with it. I love a live studio audience, and the reason for it is because it's the closest thing to theater that you can get in film. I know they're different mediums and you have to treat them differently, but I have to acknowledge that when you have a live studio audience, you do as a performer get an added energy, and I think it comes through a lot in their performances. I think a lot of the humor is paced so well because of the natural audience reaction, which is of course a natural sound effect that you get, but I think if the audience had not been present, some of those jokes that are paced really well and laughed at really well and give you, the audience member, like the watcher, the space to laugh and enjoy the moment. I hate watching a show and there's a funny moment and now I'm busting a gut because it was so funny and they've moved on. And now I'm like, oh, I missed all of the last 3 sentences that were said. I think the nice art about having a live studio audience is that those moments get to be reveled in for a moment, and then you move on, like live theater. But you still have all of the nice things of film that you can cut and do it again if you didn't get it right or whatever. And I'm sure with a live studio audience, your first take is always going to be the most natural reaction. So I understand that there is a level of like genuineness that probably comes with fewer takes the better. So I'm not going to say that every laugh that you hear is 100% genuine. I'm sure some of it is prompted because they're trying to match the last bad take that they had, but you know, whatever that is. But I like a live studio audience, and I wish that it was still a common thing, because I think especially with kids productions, like younger audience productions, I think it just adds this level of, I don't know, just like human connection and charm, that like there were really real people that were sitting there enjoying Hannah Montana live. Like, you don't get an opportunity to just go and watch the show that you love being filmed like that without working as an extra on set.
Yeah.
Like, that's really the only way you can do that anymore. And so I think it's a perfect time capsule and good use of a live studio audience. So I thought that that was a really big positive in my perspective. I also really like the clothes. I know that you said that they're very dated and it dates it for you, but I'm looking at Hannah Montana like glad for this capture of time and what it was. And the clothes were so iconic. They were very trendy for what was popular with young teens and preteens of that time. You know, the sequin tank tops and the 3 layers of shirts and the scarf as a belt and fedoras and vests over a t-shirt over skinny jeans. Like, that was just the look. And I look on it with fondness. Yes, people don't dress like that anymore. I'm not trying to say that they do or that they should, but to me, I look at it and I'm like, it's just so iconic of the time. And I think that Hannah Montana as a character, like when Miley is being Hannah, she added a level of glam to what was already trendy. And I think that, like, you'd go into stores like Limited 2, or remember when that existed, and there'd be shirts that looked like what Hannah Montana had worn or whatever.
Kohl's had a line.
Yeah, they did. Yeah. Like, it was like a Hannah Montana line, and you could buy like the sequin t-shirt or whatever. And so it's like, I don't know, for me, I look on all of that with a lot of fondness, because I think it's just because it was so stylized because of who Hannah Montana was. She was a pop star. So like of course her look is going to be very popular of the time. So I look on it like in the same way that like I love the costumes in Pride and Prejudice. Yes, it's dated. Nobody dresses like that, but I like it because that's how people dress. And so I look at Hannah Montana, I'm like, I looked like that when I was 14.
I didn't think the clothes were negative, to be clear. That wasn't a negative. I think it objectively does date it.
That's fair.
But I think that it's very true to the time. Yeah. So I didn't dock points for that.
Okay.
And fair. I think you actually convinced me about the live audience. I'll give back half a point.
Hey!
So I'll give it a 1 out of 2.
Yeah. Okay, so the music is still a banger.
It is.
I still listen to Hannah Montana on occasion. I'm not gonna lie. And if the internet rumors, which are probably not true, that Miley Cyrus is considering a 20th anniversary Hannah Montana tour, you best believe I'm going to try to get some tickets.
That would be amazing. We should go.
That'd be so fun.
We should go.
So music is good, and Miley performs it really well. And I always think it would have been fun to be like, I signed up to be a live studio audience for this new Disney show, and then you show up and you're ushered into a concert venue, and that's what you do, is you have to pretend to be a Hannah Montana fan or that day.
So do you want a fun fact? So actually, before the show released, like they were still filming like the pilot. I think I could be wrong, but there's an interview with Miley Cyrus on the internet talking about how they filmed those concert scenes.
Yeah.
They went into malls and they set up like a mall. Or no, they set up, yeah, I think they set it up in a mall, maybe. But they're like going around malls and asking people if they want to come and see this like free concert. And then they're literally just like pulled people off the street and they're watching somebody, they have no idea who this is up on the stage, and they have no idea who Hannah Montana is, no idea who Miley Cyrus is. And so they literally were just like the most random people, and it was just like all these like kind of mall tours they did trying to get random strangers, hey, you want to come watch this for free and just act like a fun crowd and like pretend this is like a really great concert. And then they just filmed, that's how they filmed all the musical numbers for the first season.
That's incredible. My last big note before I move on from aesthetics is I love the classic Hannah Montana scene transition where it goes to like the beach and it's like na, 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 or whatever she sings, and then it like switches to the next scene or whatever. I love it.
Oh, whoa.
Yeah, exactly. And I know it's cheesy and it's corny to look at, but I just think
it's become iconic.
It's so iconic. It's so Hannah Montana. And it's really a nice way to bookend two scenes that would feel very jarring to just jump from one to another. It's a 3-second, maybe a little corny, but it's just a nice way to be like, all right, we got to move on to something different now. And I just think it's really good. So all of that said, 1.5 points out of 2 for aesthetics.
I saw a video of somebody that reprogrammed his Tesla or some kind of equivalent.
Sure.
To where when he clicks the lock button, it goes, oh, well, yeah. It's like the Hannah Montana thing.
Yeah.
When he like clicks the lock button. And it like plays out, you can hear it out in the parking garage.
Yeah, he's like walking into Target and he like beeps it over his, whoa, whoa.
Yeah. Basically.
Can you imagine being like the person in the car next and you're like loading your groceries in like...
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. All right, our next category, as always, second to last, is always personal taste and preference. So out of a total possible score of 2, which is all we're allowed, I give this 1 out of 2. So I do genuinely enjoy this show. It's nostalgic for me, and I do think it's one of the better Disney Channel shows in terms of writing and character development. I don't watch it on repeat all the time, but I always have a good time when I do. So it's not one that I'm like, you know what I'm in the mood for? Hannah Montana. But you know what I'm often in the mood for when I'm hanging out with Tori? Hannah Montana. Because I just enjoy watching it with her. Yeah. So it's not something that I think I've only seen like the 3rd season, maybe like the 2nd and 3rd season. I think I've only seen them maybe like once. But season 1 for sure. Some of season 2. But I have a good time. I do. It's fun to watch. It's easy to watch. You don't have to think too hard. Mm-hmm. It's not anything like surprising or unexpected, but it's okay. It's kind of like a bowl of chicken noodle soup. Yeah. It's just like, you know what you're getting, and it's good when you have it. So 1 out of 2 for me.
Okay. For me, for personal taste preference, I gave this 1.5 points out of 2. This is the kind of show where I can comfortably put it on while I'm doing chores, folding laundry, and I don't have to pay attention too hard, but like when I do, I'm like having a good time, or like if I just want something like comforting, if I'm feeling like overwhelmed, like this is something that I can watch without having to, like you said, think too hard. And there is the attachment and the nostalgia to it. You know, I grew up with it. I was one of the kids who was like watching it every week when it came out, and like so that those memories are important to me as well. They were just like in those formative years, and I it was just like, I don't know, it's like I just consider myself very lucky to be the age that I was when this show came out, because I was like old enough to like care and keep up. But not so old that it felt like I was watching something like too young for me. So I was just in that sweet spot there, and I just really like it. Like I put it on even in my adult years, and I'm enjoying myself. So, you know, it's just like one of those things where it's like, you know, do I think it's fantastic media? No. Do I think it's the best sitcom ever written? Absolutely not. That's Parks and Rec. But there's nothing that, like, when I'm watching Hannah Montana, there's nothing in me that goes, oh, I just want to watch something else now. like, it never really gets like boring or fatiguing for me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So 1.5 points out of 2 for personal taste.
Easily digestible.
Mm-hmm.
So our next category is creativity. So out of a total possible score of 1, I gave this full points. So 1 out of 1. So this show and the success of Miley Cyrus's career truly did change Disney Channel's approach to TV shows and trying to develop TV stars into pop stars. So I really think this was a landmark show for the Disney Channel, especially in the 2000s. Like it kind of rode the wave. This and High School Musical really changed the way that Disney Channel approached their TV shows, their movies, the fact that they found a market in TV shows marketing to also musical interests of young kids. And I think this is a really well-written show. I think that there are a lot of Disney Channel shows that have tried to repeat the success of Hannah Montana and have not met the mark. And I know that this era of Disney Channel, I think it was like Hannah Montana, That's So Raven, Sweet Life of Zack and Cody. I'm probably forgetting a whole bunch more.
Anything that came, Wizards of Waverly Place overlapped a bit, so kind of that era too.
Yeah, I mean, that really was, I think a lot of people would consider that like a really magical time for the Disney Channel, like no pun intended. But I think this show has had the most success out of all of its contemporary shows, including other networks. So I think cable TV with kids TV, this made its mark.
It was the golden standard.
Yep. And I think it had success. It just had the it factor. And maybe you could argue and say that it factor was Miley Cyrus. Maybe it was, but I really think it was the multitude of factors. I think it was the casting. I think it was the songs. I think it was the writing. I think it was just the way the TV show was presented. The fact that adults and kids could comfortably watch it together, that it was engaging for everybody. It did a lot of things right. And I think that the combination of factors, a lot of other children's media, let's say there's 5 components, they've had 4 of the 5, and they just haven't had the magic that I think this show really had. So I think for that alone, it merits full creativity, and the fact that it launched Miley Cyrus's career. And she's an incredibly successful artist. She's not necessarily touring right now, but if she did, she'd pack out seats.
Yeah. She's another international name.
Yeah. So and still has a fan base and is still successful. So 1 out of 1.
So for me, for creativity, I also gave this a full point. I think if you are a fan of Disney in any capacity, I think that you can agree that the different facets of the Disney company, they kind of had their like golden era. So it's like, you can think of like Disney, they dub like the Disney Renaissance with animated films, and it was kind of like 80s into 90s, and that was like the Disney Renaissance. And then the Disney parks were considered at their peak in like the late 90s, early 2000s. And I think when you hit that early to late 2000s, the Disney Channel was that was its golden era, at least in my perspective, because I just like to see that each facet of the Disney company has kind of had its time where it was like, this is working, and so we're going to continue doing it. Now, it's unfortunate when they try things that don't work, and that it ends up kind of like diminishing that influence or impact. And we've seen that, happening with other aspects of the Disney company as well. We've talked about that kind of in the past briefly, but I think that Hannah Montana really was in that sweet spot era of the Disney Channel. Not just Disney Channel shows, but Disney Channel original movies were doing incredibly well. And the Disney Channel was also highlighting, I think this was still the time when, I mean, I had a younger sister, but she wasn't this young. But like when the small little kid Disney shows too were playing in like the daytime, like the morning, those were getting really popular around this time. Just the Disney Channel was just at its peak in these years. And I think that a lot of that has to do with potentially I think if I was to kind of describe it, I would say that That's So Raven laid the paving stones. Sweet Life and Zack and Cody tested them out, and then Hannah Montana took off running. And so I think that those three shows together kind of built up to the nice era that we got in as far as like Disney Channel shows at the time, live action shows. Because there were animated shows that were going on around this time too. Kim Possible and American Dragon Jake Long were just two that I can think of off the top of my head, animated series around this time that did really well as well. So I just think that because of how iconic Hannah Montana was and still is relevant in pop culture, even though it's 19 years old at the time of this recording, I think that definitely needs to be mentioned and given full props for.
All right. So
your final score. Sorry.
My final score for Hannah Montana episode 1 through 5 of season 1 is 5.5 out of 10.
Okay. And mine is 7 out of 10. So
nice.
A little bit stronger.
Very nice.
Okay, do you have anything to say before lightning round?
No, I think this is a good show. I feel like I could probably wiggle a little more into the 1.5 out of 2 for personal taste, but 1 is what I went with originally, so I'm not going to change it, but full disclosure, I may...
It could have been a 6.
It could have been a 6. Could have been a 6 out of 10. So.
Okay, lightning round. Favorite character?
Ooh, probably Lily.
Oh, I was going to say Lily as well.
Yeah.
I also really like Jackson.
Yeah.
I think Jackson's a fun character. Do you have a least favorite character?
Yes, but I can't think of who it is. In these episodes,
yeah,
I would say my least favorite character is the Rico's cousin that's the hairdresser.
Sure, yeah.
It would be her.
Okay.
She's so annoying.
Yeah. Who would I pick? Maybe Tracy.
She is a little annoying. She has nasal problems.
Do you think her voice is really like that, or do you think that she's playing it up for the character?
I think I saw an interview with her, and she is playing it up.
Oh, okay.
Camera,
well, she does it really well.
Yeah.
It makes me want to
feel like
not
I
listen
heard
to her talk.
I feel like the clip I saw, she was talking about where that voice for Hannah Montana came from. I can't remember the rest of the interview, but
okay.
Yeah.
So it's not, because I would have felt bad if I was like ragging on her voice and that's like actually how that lady talks.
No, she doesn't talk like that.
Okay.
No.
Then her, Tracy. I hate your voice.
Yeah.
Okay, of these 5 episodes,
okay,
what's your favorite one?
I think Lily, Do You Want to Know a Secret?
Okay.
Yeah. I think that one's my favorite.
That one is really strong.
Yeah.
I think, but I also like It's My Party and I'll Lie If I Want To. I think that one's, as much as I hate Tracy, I actually think that episode.
Why is that one your favorite?
I just think it's fun because it's one of the first episodes where Miley's trying to blend the two pockets of her life together a little bit more, and like we kind of see like Lily going to the concert and as Lola in Oliver's episode where she tells Oliver, but this is the first time to see like Miley trying to navigate how to blend those two worlds together, so I like that aspect. So okay, do you have a favorite Hannah Montana song? Do you remember them enough?
Can you pull up a track list?
Sure. Let's find one. Hannah Montana soundtrack.
Just from the first one? Yeah. We're just going to do the first one, right? Because we're in season 1.
All right. We got The Best of Both Worlds. Who Said Just Like You, Pumping Up the Party. If We Were a Movie, I Got Nerve. The Other Side of Me, This Is the Life. And then these were other bands that sang these songs. But and then of course Nobody's Perfect in the 2-disc special edition.
Gotta have that one. I think I would have to we would have to do that album as an episode for me to really have a good answer. But I think when I was a kid, my favorite, I think The Other Side of Me may have been one of my favorites.
I've always liked Just Like You.
Yeah, I like Who Said as well. Yeah, I think. Yeah, it's hard to remember like which one was my favorite as a kid. But I think it was probably either Who Said or maybe The Other Side of Me.
Okay.
And I don't even remember how If We Were a Movie goes.
If we were a movie,
oh my god,
you'll be the right guy and I'll be the best friend. You fall in love with you. Do you remember now?
I do now.
Okay.
Yeah, because Taylor Swift had If This Was a Movie.
Yeah.
So, yep. Yeah, so I think it would be that one.
Okay.
Yeah.
If it was which one?
I think Who Said.
Who Said.
I think Who Said was
That's
one
fair.
of my favorites.
They're all bangers, so there's no wrong
How
answer
does Who
here.
Said go again?
Who said you can't be Superman? I don't remember all the lyrics. I said that I know I can, or something like that.
I think those are the words. Yeah. I can't be, Who Said I Won't Be President?
Yeah.
I said you ain't seen nothing yet.
Yeah, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, see? You remember.
I think that one was my favorite.
That one's
one of
fun.
my favorite. Off that album. And then Best of Both Worlds. I mean, come on.
I mean, that's a classic.
Classic.
Classics. Also, Nobody's Perfect.
That one also
a
classic.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure.
Everybody makes mistakes. Everybody has those days.
Yeah, that one's really good too.
There is no bad Hannah Montana song, is what we're getting at.
Well, there was one on the second CD that was not.
Oh,
I
don't remember those as clearly, but
yeah,
I did have that CD as well.
Yeah.
Okay, last question. You ready?
Ready. If
you could create a kids sitcom, what is your overall premise?
Oh my gosh. Do we have another hour of this podcast left? I don't know. That's a tough one. If I could create a kids sitcom. Man, that is a tough one. I feel like, would it have to be set in modern day?
It can be set whatever you want.
I feel like I would make like, but I'm just going to come up with something because we don't have all night long to think of something. I think I would do like a fantasy, like medieval fantasy sitcom with like teens, like kind of like a Lord of the Rings style sitcom where these like teens from different like fantasy backgrounds, but maybe they're all like normal peasant people. So like one's like a blacksmith's son and one's like the miller's daughter and one's like, I don't know, like a page boy for a knight. And so then they're all like kind of normal boring people, but then they have to go on some kind of quest.
Okay.
I think I would do that. And then they have like, you could add the hilarity with like some fantastical like creatures or animals, you have like a griffin, like, and they encounter these different animals and stuff like that along the way.
Okay.
Maybe one's like a groom, like takes care of horses, and so he's like really good with like all these mythical animals, and so then they all have like different skills, but they're like normal ordinary skills, and then they have to like work together and like overcome the like episode of the week would be some kind of like fantasy villain, like some cyclops or a dragon or something like that. I think I would set it in that time period because I feel like there's not a lot of fantasy lore for kids that isn't like just letting your kid watch Lord of the Rings, which that's a PG-13 movie. So
PG-13.
Movie 13.
I think I would do a sitcom about a family and they have 2 kids, maybe 3 kids, and whatever the parents do, it causes them to travel internationally all the time. They're just always traveling, but the whole family goes. And so they go all over the world and they have to like, it could be like fun and like tongue in cheek and kind of slice of lifey, but there could be good lessons to be learned too about like differences in cultures and like appreciating and learning how to be adventurous, but also like kind and how to make a friend when you potentially have something like a language barrier or something like that. I think something like that could be very like wholesome and slice of life.
Yeah, that could be good.
I think I would do a sitcom like that.
Yeah. And then in my sitcom, then they could meet a pirate and there could be like a little cabin boy that
Yeah.
like gets to join along, or cabin girl gets to join along. They're like, all I do is load the cannonballs into the thing, but then they're like super ripped.
Yeah.
So they're like, maybe
They're like 12 and like.
Yeah, they've got like super strength, so then they have to like pick up a boulder, and this kid's like, I got this.
Like, oh, I dropped my tennis ball under this car. Don't worry. And they like lifts the car or something.
Yeah. Except it's in the Middle Ages, so there's no cars.
Oh, right.
My,
I forgot about that.
My carriage.
Yeah.
My carriage, or my donkey cart.
Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah.
So those are all the questions I have.
Those
Do you
are
have
good
any other thoughts?
No. Seriously though, if Miley Cyrus tours as Hannah Montana, we going.
We going. Even if we gotta travel to like New York or something.
We going.
We going.
That'd be so fun.
That'd be fun. All right, thank you so much for joining us on this episode. Sorry, did you have something else you were gonna say?
I was just gonna say we could take our Hannah Montana CDs and get them signed.
Yeah, I still have them.
I know, I still got mine.
Thank you so much for joining us on this episode. We hope you had a good time because we know that we did. If you have an idea of what we could review, please leave us a comment. Use our suggestion box on our website. We do take those and use them. So your episode suggestion could be upcoming. You can also find links to our show notes, Patreon, and socials on our website. That is lionandmousepodcast.com. Review this episode wherever you listen to podcasts. If you're watching this on YouTube, all of the YouTube things that everybody yells at you to do, like, comment, and subscribe, they tell you to do those things because they help the algorithm and it helps more people to see us. So if you haven't been spreading the word, let the algorithm do it for you.
Exactly.
It really helps us to reach as many people as we can, and we appreciate all the support. So thank you so much for listening. We will catch you in the next one.
Bye.